So I am presenting this in conjunction with Mike Steik, who is our Northeast Iowa Regional Director or Supervisor, and Jeff Kapaska, who is our Fisheries Biometrician. And that's a big word for someone who likes to play with numbers quite a bit. And this survey has been going on, as I'll share a little bit later, for quite a while. And it helps us to constantly look for ways to improve our trout fisheries and for our anglers. So our trout program is in Iowa, as you've seen before, this Driftless area. And on here, it's shown in orange. And we have our trout streams are mainly in the Driftless area. We have roughly 90 streams in 9 counties, not including Lynn County. We have over 530 miles of cold water streams, and over 143 of those miles are open to the public for fishing. We have this year 18 total community stockings in 15 other counties, which are these black dots here that you see throughout the state, and that are not in the Driftless area, with about 15 miles, within about 15 miles of 26 major cities, except Clinton and Newton. As I said before, the reasons we like to have this survey is to evaluate trout angler activities and their preferences. We can look at some of the demographics of our anglers. We can adjust our stream management goals. We have the community or urban fisheries successes, and we can also look at trends. So just going quickly through some of the methods, our trout angler surveys, as I said before, are every 5 years, and we've since 1975. We have done 6 surveys by telephone, which meant that people would get a phone call from our trout anglers or from our staff and ask the questions. In 2006, we started to go on to something a little bit different. And then in 2011 and 2016, we did an online survey with a follow-up mail survey. And then we are currently doing online surveys. Our telephone surveys were random from all trout feed purchasers statewide, and we only got about a 1 to 2% response from that. And especially if you think about calling someone out of the blue in today's world, it's probably not gonna, we'll probably get even less than 1% response rate. Our mail surveys started in, as I said before, 2006, and we were looking for a way to increase our response rate. And we began doing our modern survey techniques with a hybrid version in 2011 and 16 and to current. And so what we do here is our surveys are stratified random, and they are stratified by region within the state, and then they are random by trout feed purchasers within a region. So we only look at trout feed purchasers. And plus then we have a non-resident group, because we know that our non-residents comprise a bit of our fishing for trout. In 2021, we had 19,187 surveys. We had about 4,000 responses at a 21% response rate, which is way better than the 1 to 2% rate we got in those earlier surveys. And we also surveyed about 36% of the trout privileged purchasers. So that's over a third of our trout anglers. And each response represents about 13 trout anglers. So on this slide, you can see this is the number of trout privileges purchased, and this is the total number sold on the left, and the years across the x-axis. You can see that since 1994 here, we've had a steady increase. And in 2011, we broke our 40, the magic number was 40,000 fishing license privileges. And in 2022, we had record sales with 56,340 trout privileges purchased. So there was a big jump. Here, you can kind of see what happens when we have an epidemic, and people wanted to get outside in 2019, 2020, 21, 2022. And annually, our license sales generate over $816,000. So that's pretty good. As you can see in this slide, looking at some of the demographics, most of our trout anglers are men. There is no difference in the age of the anglers, really. The mean age is about 47. And it's, you know, and that's the typical population of our, of Iowa. There's a wide range of purchasers, with the majority of the trout anglers being middle-aged. Right here, this is where a lot of folks are. And we seem to be shifting to older as the boomers age through. So we start to see more of them this way. And the number of female trout anglers, if you look at percent of female anglers over the years, female anglers have increased, just not as, and while the males have kind of stayed stable. So that's, we got to get some more ladies in this out there fishing, and we'll get it. We have a steady increase of trout angling days. This slide shows it's the number of days the anglers reported that they were actually out fishing, and on the y-axis is the total number of days anglers spent out fishing. And you can see that the number of trout angling days is pretty much even though we sold about the same number of privileges, which means that the number of angling days really hasn't gone up, even though we've sold more. So people aren't getting out as much as we'd like them to. This mean angling days has gone down from 11 to 9.7 days. And you can kind of see that reflected here in this slide. The number of the angling days is by percentage of anglers. So the number of days an angler spends out fishing in 2021, several of them had 8 days didn't go out fishing. So if you look here, the 54% of the anglers surveyed spent 5 days or less. So that's this numbers here. 78% of the anglers surveyed were 15 days or less. And you can really see there's a clear cutoff here. And interesting to note, 71% is about what it has been since 1975. So really, the number of days people spend fishing hasn't changed overall. And it was even not so much fun is that 8% of, or 8% of the people who bought a trout privilege didn't even go out fishing. So here you can see this is the number of angling trips to our streams, whether it be any of our restricted regulations, our catchable streams. We've had almost 723,000 angling trips, which is very similar to last year. It's up about 140,000 trips from our 2011 survey. And note that even with over 94,000 trips, it's only for in our community fishing, it's only 13.1% of the total. So that means that anglers still are flocking to our trout streams, which is our bread and butter of the program. And non-residents are also still a really small portion of the total. If we look at this slide, we look at a closer look at the community ponds and lakes. We have, even though we increased the number of community stockings, it didn't necessarily double the number of fishing trips. So if, you know, so 7 of 18 community fisheries in 2021 had over 6,000 trips. And 34% of the anglers specifically purchased a license, a trout privilege, to go to a community fishery, compared to 30% in 2016. So that's kind of neat. And here, this slide shows the top 25 streams fished. If you ever wanted to know what's the most popular stream in Northeast Iowa, well, it happens to be North Bear with almost 40,000 trips. And the next one, and that's a lot of pressure on one stream. And the next one closest to it at almost 25,000 is South Bear. Now these 15 streams here, all the way down to Joy Springs, they kind of change amongst themselves, but they are still pretty much always 15 in the top 15. So our goal is to provide trout fishing to urban families and in our communities. And so we're trying to recruit new anglers, and we are educating anglers about Iowa trout fishing opportunities. And in 2021, 31% of the anglers purchased a trout fee specifically for our urban trout program. And each community fishing is stocked twice. Each pond is stocked twice, once in the fall and the winter, and then once in the winter and spring. And we often work with a local partner, whether it be our county conservation board folks or the cities in which the ponds are located. We always partner. We like to partner with them. And that partner is required to hold a family-friendly fishing event at one of those two. And being an active partner is the key to increased use and participation. And so, you know, if we can bribe those people, I mean, if we can entice them to come out for a snack or a treat, or if the kids come and they can participate and they get prizes, it's a really good way to introduce people, and it's a lot of fun with the families, and it's just a really neat experience. So if you guys haven't come to one of our urban fisheries or community fishing programs, make sure you do so, because it is quite a bit of fun. Now we have looking at streams with our restrictive regulations. Everybody's always kind of curious about that. The number above the bar is the number of fisheries that have special regulations. So we really haven't changed the number of streams that have a restrictive regulation on it. And the number of streams with those restrictive regulations had been declining. It shot back up in 2021. But with our increase in naturally reproducing streams and other streams with no regs, having populations as good as our streams with a restricted regulation, it's not necessarily, the anglers don't necessarily have to go to a restrictive regulation stream to get good fishing. They can go just about anywhere. And if you guys ever remember the movie A River Runs Through It, that came out in 2021, and that could potentially explain this huge increase in 2001. Oh yeah, and also the average number of trips an angler takes to a stream is about 2.6. So they would go to a certain stream, take two trips to a stream in a year. And then anglers, the percent of trout released, we looked at that. That was one of our questions. And you can kind of see that here on this left-hand side, we have some people, we ask if they released any of the fish, none of the fish, if they released some of the fish, about half, most, or all. And you can see in the early 1996, most of the people, they kept the fish. And that trend has kind of reversed itself in 2021. Although there seems to be a shift lately, the 2000, but you can still see that the river runs through it effect too, by a lot of people releasing the fish. Another question that we asked on our survey is terminal tackle. And kind of we're wondering to see what most people prefer, if they prefer to use bait, if they prefer to use artificial lures or flies. And you can see in 2021, our survey shows that there has been pretty much a steady increase in the number of people using flies and even artificial lure. People are using less bait. Another question we ask is about access. How satisfied are you with the amount of public access on the trout stream? And for the most part, with 1 being not very and 10 being very satisfied, most of the anglers are very satisfied with the amount of public access. And the neat thing is we've added about 10 miles of stream with permanent angling access over the last 10 years. So that's pretty good. How satisfied, another question is, are you with the number of restrictive regulations on the streams? And remember, we've had 7 since 2006. And with the same rating as 1 being very dissatisfied and 10 being satisfied, anglers seem to be pretty indifferent to whether or not there is a restrictive regulation on a stream based on these ratings. It's pretty, there's a pretty good number here. So then we look at the satisfaction overall of our trout program. And again, with 1 being dissatisfied and 10 being satisfied. And between our hatcheries producing a good product and our management's work on the trout streams, we have pretty satisfied customers. And not that we can't tweak our program, or we shouldn't be constantly looking at ways to improve our fisheries and our anglers' success, but that's why we have this survey. We can there's so many more questions that we asked and more things that we can look at, but with this survey, but we just decided to delve into these hot questions, and it's pretty good. And for a program to have satisfied anglers and to continue doing what we do, it's a really nice survey method to come up with a bunch of answers. And with that, I guess I can take any questions.
There were a couple of questions that came in. The first one, someone asked if you have any recommendations for attracting more women to fly fishing.
I think a lot of it is just to be more involved within the local communities. Trout Unlimited has certainly been working on involving women. They've been doing quite a few. I know that in Iowa we have some very active ladies who are trying to get the participation word and out there. And you know, I think it's getting a little bit easier to get equipment, and I think, and we're getting more women that are guides, especially in Iowa. We have some really good folks who are ladies who are willing to guide, and maybe in my retirement I'll have to consider guiding as one of those options. And who knows, you know, I know where all the fish are. It doesn't mean that I can catch them.
Nice.
Oh, thanks. Another question that came in, it said, does Iowa DNR have any sense of the trend coming out of the pandemic? Do you see trips increasing, staying steady, or potentially declining? I know we're not out very far past it yet, but what are your thoughts?
I think during the pandemic, it was ridiculous. We had people coming from all over the place, even though they weren't supposed to be coming from all over the place. We had people from Texas and California. Oh my gosh, we were so busy. But I still think that we're still seeing quite a few people. I think they experienced the streams, how neat they were. You know, in this part of Iowa, it's not flat. And I think a lot of people realize that we have really good resources here, and we will hopefully continue to have good resources, and that's gonna speak for itself, I think.
Excellent. I actually had a question for you about whether or not you're doing anything to help spread out pressure. Are you looking to educate folks about other opportunities beyond North and South Bear? Or?
Well, yeah, several of the things we've been tweaking is our trout calendar, trying to not necessarily not tell people when we're stocking, but just kind of switch it up a little bit so that people aren't always going to that one particular place or avoiding that one particular place. But we're also, recently we've been increasing, you know, the number of streams we have with public access. And so that's going to help spread things out. I think it just is a matter of trying to educate folks that there's a lot of resources out there. And, you know, if there's a lot of people just have to walk from get away from the parking areas or whatever, because there's a lot of good water in between those areas. And if you take a walk or, just get out there and explore, we've got maps, we've got online resources, we've got, friendly office folks who are, especially at the hatcheries, when they're out and about, they're like, oh, you like this stream? Well, hey, I've got a stream that's really, you might want to try. If this one's too busy for you, we talk to a lot of people when we're out on the streams stocking, and we like to get that word out. So we get it out there.
That's excellent. I had a question come in. Someone asked how the survey is funded.
It's funded through our, I think it's just funded through our trout program or through our, it's just a part of our job. It's passed on that way.
I actually had one more that I was curious about. I hear anecdotally that, there's a big swarm of Wisconsin and Minnesota anglers after the seasons close. I don't know if you guys looked at timing for those, dates of fishing and the resident versus non-resident in any of your surveying at all, but curious if you see it in your data or not.
I think they do see it. I have, they tease it out in other questions, and our non-resident anglers are just kind of a smaller minority of privileges of the folks that come into Iowa, and they are, yeah, I think we can tease it out of the data. I just didn't present it here. But I do notice that I get a few more phone calls from out of state folks when the seasons close and ask if there's any new water they can fish, or if there's any places that we would recommend that they go if things are starting to turn on. We always get those kinds of questions, but I think it can it's teased out in the survey, and it'll be coming up here pretty quick. They're about this close to getting it finished and published.
Excellent. Well, I think that does it for our questions. Oh, I guess, well, no, I've got one more that says, can you describe the easement program and what the status of funding for easement acquisitions is?
Our easement program is in a short period of time. We have a really good easement program that we work with landowners who are willing to sell an easement to either the DNR or a county conservation board or a local TU group or whomever, and we will help them. And they can also donate it too. It just all depends on the how it best benefits them. But the easements are available, and they just need to contact my coworker Mike, and he's better at dealing with those things than I am. And but we get some of that money through hopefully here we'll be getting it through in a budget, but a lot of that money comes back through other means. That's not a very good explanation of our easement program, but we have it. It's a really good program. A lot of our streams in Iowa, the parts that are open, that are handshake only, are only handshakes. And so we're going to be losing a lot of those areas in the very near future. And so by getting those easements on, and we only do easements that are for the forever. So that's the nice part about our easement. We don't have to go back and in 10 or 20 years and ask if we can still fish on that area. Even though it's changed hands, it's still on that ground. So that's the nice part. And then for the DNR, we don't hold that easement. Well, no, that's not right. But we have that easement, and we check it, and we maintain the area. It's a little bit easier for trout groups and other groups to do habitat work on those streams, because that's part of the agreement in our easement.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Teresa. I really appreciate you giving a presentation today.
Yeah, you're welcome.